So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to stop losing hotel guests, which is basically how do you get repeat hotel customers. What you need to do in order to solve this problem is very simple. You need to generate a post-stay system. And I will explain exactly what that entails because most hotel owners or most independent hotels have a process that looks like this. And that's why you keep losing guests. You have a guest who comes in, they check in, they have a great stay. The room was clean. The service was great. Everything was fantastic. And they check out really happy. And then after they've checked out, nothing happens after that. Your systems end at that point. And then what happens when they want to come back and check in with you again? They go back to OTAs. And they come back and they check in. So basically, what are you doing? This is a happy guest that you keep having to pay for every single time because you're paying for commission. No. What I want you to understand from this is that the goal of business or the goal of your hotel business is so that you are not just making a sale. Your goal is to acquire a customer that you can keep. And if you do this process, what it simply entails is that you keep buying your customer every single time, even though you've already proven trust and you've built a great relationship with that particular customer. So, which brings us today to talk about what a post-stay system should actually look like. So, let's get into it. In this example, we have a guest who spends $20,000, and that's basically the lifetime value of that customer. Within a certain period, they typically spend $20,000 at your hotel. Now, if they book directly with you because they're a low guest, you spend zero in the commissions, right? So basically, you're not paying to reacquire this customer over and over again. Your revenue for this total period is going to be $20,000 because you're keeping all of that money because you're not spending to acquire the customer. Now, if you have to reacquire the customer every single time, meaning that you're getting the customer via OTA, just like this scenario that I painted out, if they're spending $20,000, you're going to be spending $5,000 on commission. Your revenue is going to be $15,000, and you're going to be losing $5,000. And what you need to understand is that there is no reason for you to keep spending this $5,000 because you've already built the trust and they are low guests. But what you haven't done is build a post-stay system. Now, what I want you to understand is that it's not that OTAs are the enemy. That's not the point of this because OTAs serve a purpose. They help you build trust with customers. They help you with distribution. They do a lot of work that I wouldn't advise an independent hotel owner to go and do. So you're not competing with OTAs. What this is that once OTAs has done its work, you are to step in and carry over the rest. So after you've built the trust with the guest, your relationship, your focus now is building the relationship between you and the guest. So that if they're going to come back to stay with you again, they have a direct path. And that's what the post-stay system is. It's that once they've checked out, you just need to introduce a system to reintroduce them back into your own channel, not going to OTAs and paying for that particular customer over and over again. So let's take a look at the 5 components of basically creating a post-stay system. The first one is going to be guest capture. And what this simply means is that you need to collect guest data, contact data, before checkout. Now, whether they come from OTAs or wherever channel they come through, you want to make sure you're double checking the guest phone numbers or the guest email. Those are very important because that's what's going to help you reach out to them and create more relationship with that particular guest. Now, also what you want to do is tag each of those guests, meaning that if a guest comes for business, you want to tag them. If they're coming for leisure, you want to tag that. That's what's going to help you to create more contextual offers for those individuals. So let's go to the next one. So the second component here is the checkout trigger. What this simply means is that most hotel owners treat checkout as the finish line. No, it shouldn't be. It should trigger a new system. And what that system could look like is simple. You want to send a thank you message. You want to send a message, get reviews. You want to give them an offer or show them how to book with you direct again. That is what a checkout trigger system looks like. So let's take a look at component number 3, which is basically review system. Now, a lot of hotel owners approach this completely wrong. They approach it from the position of treating it like it's a lottery ticket. They never really know what's going to happen. Sometimes it might be good, sometimes it might be bad reviews. They're always short, and that should not be the case. You should be able to predict the kind of reviews a guest is going to leave, because all of the issues that arise before they check out. Now, you start asking yourself, did you solve the problem while the guest brought it up at that moment? Or are you waiting till checkout before you begin to resolve or address any issues a guest should have? Now, in order to make sure your review system is predictive, meaning you should be able to know exactly the kind of review a guest would have, it's not about being selective or only giving those guests who had a great stay, the opportunity to leave a review. No. What you need to do is your front desk should be able to assess how a guest feels throughout their entire stay. And they should be able to solve the problem and make the guest happy before the guests get to the point of checkout. And if you do this, your review system is going to be predictive because you have solved the problem and they are happy, right? The second thing you want to make sure is that you're sending reviews on a timely manner. You don't want to wait 3 years before you send in a request for a review. So the time is very important. The next note is when you're sending reviews, you want to just make it as simple as possible. You don't want to send them to 3 different or 7 different places to go leave a review. TripAdvisor, Google, all of that. No, just one channel, just one place. Whichever one is the most important, you send to them and then you request for that review. So that's your review system. So component number 4, relationship building. Now, this is where money actually gets made. If a guest books through OTA, they own the relationship. If the guest books through you, you own the relationship. Now, your plan here is to begin to take over that ownership. Basically, have the guests move from their list to your list. Now, how do you do this? You do this by, first of all, answering these 3 questions. Now, after the guest is checked out and you followed all of this, you want to basically now tell the guest, how will the guest book directly through you? You need to provide why they need to do that. Then you provide the reasons, because you get certain perks, certain benefits. You need to justify why they should leave them and come through you. The third thing you want to do is, how would you solidify that relationship? How would you recognize them when they come back over and over again? So it means that, do you remember their name? Do you remember their preference? Do you remember the things they like? That's how you build that close bond and relationship and build that loyalty. And that is how you begin to take ownership of the guests. So the 5th one here is repeat stay logic. And what you need to understand is that in order to make sure that you have a great post-stay system, you need to be able to answer 3 questions. And if you can't answer these 3 questions, you don't have a system, you're just open. Now, what are these 3 questions? The first one you want to be able to answer is, who should book again with you, right? You need to first realize who. You then need to realize, why would they want to book again with you? The third thing is when should you reach out to them to book again directly with you? These are the 3 questions you need to ask. Now, let's look at some examples. Now, if you have somebody who you typically know comes to a business and is an ideal client of yours, you've answered the who. And now you need to ask, why would they? They're typically coming back for their job, so that's important. So that's good. You take note of that. The next question is, when should you reach out to them? So if they're coming back for the job, they'll probably come back every quarter. So that's a good time to actually reach out to that particular guest. Reach out to that guest quarterly. Now, what happens if you have a leisure guest, someone who travels for vacation? You've identified the who, because you know a lot of people come for vacation at your hotel. You need to then ask the question, why will they come? They're coming because they want to repeat their trip, repeat experience, things like that. Now, it's guests like this, when should you reach out to them? Typically the same season they came last year, around that same time. So you want to craft an email that you sent to them around this period. Now, what happens if you're a good destination for people who want to do events, weddings, birthdays, and things like that? Why would they come? They typically come back to re-celebrate a milestone or an anniversary, things like that. And when should you reach out? You're probably going to reach out a year from there or that same period the following year. So the anniversary, the birthdays, things like that. Now, what I want you to understand is that repeat stays don't happen because the stay was good. Repeat stays happen because someone followed up at the right time, at the right season. That's what you need to understand. So all of this can be done with a software, or you could do this manually, right? It's the benefit of this is the fact that you don't have to pay commissions, you don't have to spend money on ads to keep getting the same guest who was going to come anyways. That's the purpose of this.